everybody.
Hey, everybody. Oh, I'm getting a little feedback here. We'll see if we can fix that as we go. If you guys do still notice that along the way, drop that in the comments. And that's something that we can certainly address along the way. But with that being said, it is Thursday. It feels like it's been a really long week since last week. I guess I've said that a few times in a row now, though.
Yeah. We've been really busy.
Well, and I hate to say this in a weird way, but the weather's been really busy. It's gotten really cold, but we've gotten some little storms of snow coming through. Not nearly as much as what they expected for us, so I really appreciate that. But we got, a good 4 to 6 inches or even more in some places. So you can't guarantee the ice anywhere, and certainly always check and be safe. But underneath that little bit of snow, we seem to have some pretty decent conditions for moving forward here.
Yeah. Well, so this weekend we did a little bit of walking around, scouting out some fish.
Where's our comment section?
Comments right there.
Thanks. But you're right. We were scouting out fish.
Yeah.
Tried a few different places than normal.
Yeah. Places we had never been before. Obviously places that other people frequent, but we just haven't. And it was just really fun just walking around. The one place was probably about, half-mile walk, and it was just down a little tributary and stuff. So it was really fun. Pretty consistent ice, pretty consistent fishing, I guess.
Yeah, I would say that. The other thing, moving forward is that we are going to continue to get more ice and more snow. But the other thing that we are doing is actually prepping our snowmobile. So that's going to come tomorrow. We have our outdoor cargo systems that we are installing onto. Adam is asking where we're from. Not far from Green Bay in Wisconsin. So I always call it central, but it's not really middle of the state.
Yeah, we're just west of Green Bay and south of Shawano, if you know where that is. So, but yeah, outdoor cargo systems getting on the sled tomorrow. We'll be putting the unboxing and the install video on our YouTube, so you guys can check that out. Should be really cool to get that sled all ready for ice fishing.
And certainly will allow us kind of some new endeavors. So, with that, we are talking tonight about hunting fish. And so that is one tool that is kind of new to us. We used to always be on foot. But like I said, we're here tonight to talk hunting fish with Guy Sibley from Fish with Guy Guide Service.
Hey, John.
Hey, how's it going?
Great.
So real quick here, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you got going up there in Michigan.
I've been a guide up on Gogebic for a long time, 20 some years now. Fishing report from this week's pretty good. I mean, we're getting probably 12 to 15 fish a guy. I mean, the bite's pretty subtle. I mean, we've moved around a little bit finding fish. Really good ice for this time of year. I mean, open the floodgates, let everybody come up. I mean, it's going to be a fun winter.
And like you're saying, you do guide on Gogebic, but you do not just fish Gogebic and not just perch. And that's kind of something that I learned a little bit recently. We got to hit the ice with you, and that was really awesome. So tell us a little bit about, I guess, how you hunt fish. Where do you start?
Well, it's a lot of it's years of experience, a lot of summer fishing, and then keeping track of what you find in the summer. And then the other thing I do and I like to do is use all kinds of different creo samples and net. They'll fight net these lakes, and you'll get all the information you need, sizes of fish, what's in them. A lot of the boat landings are posted even. So I do a lot of research at home and use DNR sites and government sites just to find out what's in the lake and when it's been stocked or when it's been netted, and you can learn a lot just by that. I mean, if there's 10-inch crappie somewhere and that's the average, you probably don't want to go there unless you want to catch some eaters. If there's 15-inch crappies in a lake next to it, maybe if you want to try for some bigger fish, you can figure that out and eliminate some of the lakes that have the smaller fish in them.
Well, and that's a really great point, actually, that I want to kind of hit while you're here. So you're talking about using the DNR sites. And so we're not certainly here to do a walkthrough or anything tonight. But like if I went to Google and I searched, or like how do you find that information?
Well, every state has a DNR website where you can go in and look at the lakes and samples. Josh can even elaborate more on that. I mean, Michigan has a website, and you can go on there and you can figure out exactly what species are in each lake. So it's
most of the Midwest is covered. Each state is a little bit different in the way that they post that information, but you can definitely find that. And to kind of go along with what John said, you can take the numbers that are on the paper, but you also have to take into account like what type of fish you're focusing on and where they're living. So crappies in the wintertime don't necessarily live up shallow. And so if the creel survey was done in the spring, they might still be out a little bit deeper, and you're getting a lot more pike and some walleyes and stuff that spawn earlier and not as many crappies. And so you also want to look at the frequency of sizes. So if this average size is 10, might not be good, but if you have an average size of 10 with 10% or 15% larger fish than that, might be worth looking at, though.
It's
right. It's all about just doing a little homework.
Well, and ultimately it's about maybe even visiting it and seeing what's going on there, because the number of fish that, get caught in the surveys, whether that's a net or whether that's something else, is usually a pretty fairly good depiction of the lake, but, not always super accurate of, your trophy kind of fish. They're there long time for a reason. It's not just like your stupidest fish that get picked off. So as far as choosing a lake, otherwise, what do you got? Like word of mouth or the places that you drive past, right? As far as the places that you're driving past, how do you know if it's public or private?
Well, there's up here, it's, there's 90% of it's going to be in a national forest or, county or whatever. So there's not a lot of private up here. So there's lots of lakes in that between our little northern Wisconsin, upper Michigan line, all the way through there. There are tons of lakes. So what I do is a lot of days I'll like to try 2 or 3 lakes. So what I'm doing, you guys kind of seen what I'm fishing, smaller bodies of water for big crappies and gills. What I'll do is I will pick these deep basin lakes that I can hunt them out quick in. So I'll know if these fish are there within, give me an hour on a lake. If I'm not seeing what I want to see, or if I'm not, marking fish or catching them within an hour, hour and a half, I'm probably out of there heading to the next body of water. I'm just checking the deep basins in the lake right now. So I'm not going into weeds. I'm going into the 30, 40 feet of water. I'm seeing what's there suspended. That's the fish that I'm targeting. They're more apt to eat. They're moving around, cruising in schools. So I don't know. That's just my style this time of year.
As far as targeting these fish, when you get out to that spot, what are the tools in your arsenal that you are really looking or depending on to catch these fish?
Well, I always have crappie minnows with me, but I like a jig, like an epoxy drop, something heavy, tungsten. I get down quick, and I use a big piece of plastic, Mackeys, whatever. White's probably my favorite go-to plastic on all these little stained lakes up here. They're all kind of bog lakes, so it's a little bit darker water. And if you use a little bit bigger piece of plastic, it's a bigger target for them. So these fish have no problem crushing it. So you guys actually seen that when you came up here and you experienced a little bit with us. I just think if you had a bigger target, it just helps.
Well, and I think that's a really interesting point, because especially in the ice fishing world, sometimes the focus is on such itty bitty little bug or minnow shapes that you forget to use those bigger shapes that really draw them in, that fish can see, especially from farther away. The other thing that I guess I learned from you, and I guess a lot of people do it, but I'm not very good at it, is spreading out kind of in a spot when you find fish. So you do have a bunch of the JT snare rods, and you set them up. You're saying your crappie minnows, you put them on there, and you're going to spread out kind of across the ice. You set those rods around. So wherever you are fishing your specific hole, if you're seeing the fish or not, but let's say Josh and I are together, then we could, in theory, have an extra 4 rods out around us. In Wisconsin, anyways, we're allowed the 3 rods. And then when you are able to have the rods spread out, you can then see where the fish are going. And I guess I learned that from you.
Yeah, well, and it helps. I don't know, when you're guiding, it helps too, because you're interacting with your clients. It's a lot of fun chasing snare rods. It is what it is. When you're jigging, and we fish a circle around our rods. So we're in and among them, and you'll see actually. All right, they moved. My other tool is, live scope. It's a big tool. And I just got it a few weeks ago, probably 3 weeks ago, and I haven't set it down. I mean, I just search and search and search. We do a lot of drilling. I mean, we got a crew of guys, and we'll go out and drill a lake out and find these fish before we even, we're finding a good amount of fish schooled up or moving around before we even try and fish them. We're not. When we went out the other day, we drilled out a lake and we only could find 1 or 2 fish in small little pods. We knew they were decent fish, but we actually moved on to another lake where we found, bunches of fish. I mean, I want to see 15 or 20, 30 fish in a school, and it's a little bit easier to target them. So you know what you're sitting on then.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I will throw in one thing that, John, you are talking from a person who has a lot of lakes packed into a little area. So some of these things are really easy for you, but I think a lot of these tactics really do apply across the board, because especially if you are in these heavy fish waters, first of all, sometimes the heavy packed waters are just boating. So make sure to note that. There might be a lot of boat traffic out there, but maybe not fish. Or maybe there's a lot of houses set up that people are really just kind of hanging out, in these busy spots. So, go out and check these lakes, even if they look a little bit busy. We do also have a question I saw in the comments, and we do always have time for questions. So definitely type them in if you got them. What would be a go-to lure or plastic in a lake that is so clear you can see 20 feet deep in the summer?
Well, what I would use probably most in that situation is probably a clear bait, a clear plastic. All your bugs and all your insects all you're seeing is their vertebrae or the inside, their stomachs. They're basically clear. And at that kind of depth, if just a clear plastic with a few sparkles in it, just something simple, trying to match the hatch. I do it a lot in a lot of places. What I do is when I'm on a new body of water, I'll take a bucket of water, I'll throw a couple of fish in there. I want to see what they're eating. They're going to regurgitate what they're eating. Kind of gives you an idea, a little more idea what you can kind of match and try and match your plastics or what you're using.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good tip.
Actually, I think about that because we'll fish the backwaters of the Wolf, and I see this a lot in the summer. It's like I'll snag into a stick or something, and if you drag that up, there's been numerous times I learned this because I dropped it on accident in my dog water bowl. But if you put that stick in there, and you can see, like you're saying, if there's little bugs that come off, little larvae that come off, oftentimes not something so huge, but even sometimes, I don't know, crayfish can even come up with a stick or something. So you never really know exactly what that's going to be. And so to utilize, like you're saying, what the fish are eating, what that natural forage is in the environment. And I guess one other way that we do this in the winter is with the AquaView. And this is another thing that I loved about Gogebic. So I know we're not speaking specifically to that, but the wiggler is just like thick in the bottom of that lake. We put our camera down one time, and that's why you get those teeter pig perch, because they're just munching their way along on that bottom. But to be able to know what that forage is, and then either meet or exceed it, making it the best looking bait around, that sometimes gives you that advantage.
Also, in addition to a clear bait, I would like to digress back to saying the larger plastics, and don't forget to fish the first 2-3 feet of the water column, even if you're in 20 feet of water, because those fish feed up, and anything you use is going to silhouette against the ice. So you could even use a darker color, especially a bigger profile, up against the ice, and fish will see that from a long way away, especially in that cleared water.
And I think a lot of times, especially up in these lakes up here, these fish are rubbing their backs on the ice. It seems like they're hard to mark.
Right.
So, I mean, these fish are so close to the bottom of the ice that we're not seeing them as proficient if they're in the middle of the water column or lower.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're talking about ice fishing and, setting up our spots. We were talking about the snare rods even, and, covering ice. What happens when the fish just stop biting?
Keep grinding on them. If you know they're there, you just have to keep, I've been a guide for a lot of years, and that, we get big fronts off Superior and the weather changes here quick, and it can humble you really fast. It can be awesome 1 minute and then just put the brakes on. You just have to grind on those fish. If you know they're there, I'll really back off and go small, sometimes even a treble hook, a really tiny treble hook with a bead on it, just something really small, just back way off. Even my jig sizes, I'll back way off, just try and get it really small. And a lot of times it'll make those fish trigger to eat. And that's during fronts and cold fronts when it really is extreme.
Well, and we were actually talking a little bit earlier, actually, before we were on camera, but if you are able to go fishing consistently enough to notice patterns, maybe the bite is best in the morning. Maybe they're daytime fish. Maybe they shut down in the afternoon, to be able to understand how the fish are acting in those bodies of water allows you to really target them.
Well, absolutely. I mean, time on the water is well spent, but then it's an education every day. I mean, you get to learn, I learn from the fish, and then I learn from clients. I learn from other anglers. I mean, it's a cool deal when you can start getting them patterned. But like Gogebic, as soon as you think you have it figured out, they're 10 miles from there, and you're chasing them down again. So it's just one of those places it's pretty unforgiving, and you take your whoopings, and there's days that you really do good. So it's fishing. We all been there.
Well, and I think it's also about, I guess, using the strengths of what's around, because, if you know that you have a morning panfish bite somewhere, that you have, like, let's say an afternoon walleye bite somewhere, an evening bite somewhere, it's a really, really great time to be able to, let's say you're even taking somebody out new on the ice, that you're not going to spend a totally full jam-packed day out there. If you have the option to maybe drop somebody off or get food in the middle and warm up, that's a really great time to even be bringing people with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As far as, I guess, this is probably a surprise question. As far as a guide, I know that you probably run into a lot of people who are not necessarily prepared for the ice. So if you are bringing somebody new on the ice, what do you recommend to people to be best prepared?
They'll ask what kind of clothes. I mean, I get a lot of people from either Florida or Texas or wherever they're flying in for the week for fishing, and they'll ask a bunch of questions, and I'll send them to retailers or clam, or obviously I fish clam, so I mean ice armor, and you send them in the right direction to get what they need to be prepared. You don't want anybody to be miserable on the ice. The equipment we have nowadays makes you comfortable. You stay longer, you fish longer. It's a better experience. So I mean, the clothes we're all wearing, we work for different companies, but they're all great. At the end of the day, they're getting a job done, and it's made it a lot more fun for all of us. So.
Well, and that does bring up again another really great point, is being prepared for what is out there, because like you're saying, elements can change really fast, especially on the lake, on the ice, whatever. And especially having a shack, being prepared, like you're saying, these suits are really great, but having the transportation to and from the ice and having a way to be comfortable out there, that'll just honestly make you even a better fisherman the more comfortable that you are.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, we run big track machines, snowmobiles up here. I mean, our sleds are paddle sleds. I mean, they're basically mountain sleds that the guys take out west to ride. We get big snow usually, and the slush conditions are horrible up here. I mean, it started the other day. We got 8-10 inches of snow in the lake. I ate all the way off there the other night, pulling a 200 and a guy on the sled, and I mean, it was pretty slushy. So, I mean, it started, I think, during the week here. When it warms up and cools off at night, it's going to really tighten up, and we're going to have great going again, because it doesn't look like we're going to have snow for a while. But last couple of days have been a little bit wet.
As far as hunting fish, what else am I missing?
I don't know. It's time and experience, I think. I don't know. It's just my favorite thing to do, like Gogebic, is get in transition areas, get off that riverbed, get into the mud. I'm looking for certain things when I'm chasing big fish. A lot of times it's a little, point that's coming out offshore, and it's on a flat. Find a few rocks. A lot of that's done in the summertime when I'm cruising around in my boat. I'm always marking things that I want to try. And then I watch the winds even in the summer, which way the hatches are blowing when the wigglers are are coming up. I think that, if they get pushed one way or the other, your beds are stronger on the lake, which I understand there's wigglers in the whole lake. But if you can find a good bed, I found one the other day. I put a camera down there, walking all over the place. So I've been fishing it quite a bit. So understanding and knowing where they're at, that, I'll search out wiggler beds, and then they're coming. The fish are going to be there. Do that a lot on Gogebic, where we'll drill and drill and drill and drill, find wiggler beds, mark them on our GPS, and then just come back and fish those beds, fish around them. I mean, they're holding fish. That's what they're eating.
Well, and that's a good point, because so that kind of does transition right into something about when you're at home, you can kind of do a little bit of that at the kitchen table, reading topo maps. I know we were talking about using lake maps and stuff when we were up by you, and how you can use that to even filter out some of these lakes that you want to pick out to fish specific species of fish.
Well, and of course, I'm a guide. That's what I do for a good portion of my living. But I'm not afraid to tell somebody, hey, we're fishing down an 8 Mile, we're in Nature's, and I'll tell them what we're using. We're using red jigs today, or we're using this or that. I mean, people use people for information. Our sport is an information-driven sport where, even if I'm not guiding you, I'm not afraid to help you and point you in the right direction. I get questions every night sitting in my house. I'll have guys, hey, we got our own stuff, we're going out. Where would you suggest to start? You help them. I mean, that's a big part of it too. We're always helping each other.
Yep.
I got a little bit off topic because my cat jumped on me, and so I'm sorry that I was laughing about that. But I also was still thinking about, you said time and experience. And the reason that I'm still thinking about that actually is because, especially if you are the kind of person with more crowded waters or less options than what, let's say, John has, go back to those lakes that maybe you first fished when you first started getting out there, because experience does have so much to do with that. Sometimes time of year can have a lot to do with that, or, even other factors. But when you have that experience to have the confidence going into the situation, when you do get to the point where you can, hunt fish, you can identify the maps on the lake or where the fish tend to be, you might really have a lot more success than what you first imagined. So places that you might have once first kind of ruled out or skipped might be worth a revisit. And the growth of fish after a few years, 5 years can make a big difference in a lake or in a fish or an ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just for example, when we're starting out walleye fishing on Gogebic, we're in weed beds. We're fishing 4 to 7 feet of water. We're beating the walleyes up, and then they'll move out of there within a month or so of having ice. They'll move out, and then they're in the main basin or right off the weed edge. Maybe they're coming in there at night, late at night to feed. I think more snowmobile pressure, and the bay gets a lot of snowmobile pressure. There's a main trail through there. Those fish might push out to the edges. You just have to hunt them out. Figure it out. There's always pods of fish that are living in these spots, and it takes a lot of work sometimes to figure it out. But that's the thing with ice fishing. You have to. I don't spend any more when I'm hunting these fish, and I won't spend nights and nights in a spot that's not producing. So I'm moving and moving and moving, trying to stay ahead of fish or trying to find them.
So we were talking a little bit earlier about wind, environmental factors, like how fish relate to those. Do you find yourself fishing on like upwind sides of the lake, downwind sides of the lake, and then do you use any of the lunar stuff when you're fishing for stuff? I know that's huge with musky guys, but does it apply to any of the other fish?
Oh, you're giving me a headache right now, because when you're a guide, it doesn't matter, right? You have to go. Yeah, there's a huge effect. The moon and all the phases can just turn lakes upside down. Perch are probably especially Gogebic perch are probably one of the most picky ones that I can ever find. They're not aggressive. You guys actually fished me a few times up there, so you guys kind of understand what's going on. But fronts and any kind of different changes like that can just turn it upside down. So I like just steady weather and not big changes, and usually it just keeps them rolling a little better.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Well, and if I have to choose windy or not windy, I'm going to choose the side that's a little bit shaded from wind.
Well, that's for sure. We all do. We can get beat up pretty bad out there. So, And it's hard to fish my style of fishing. So I think that as an angler, that I'm always trying to be better, or trying to find a different thing that fishes better, or catch. You want to catch more fish at the end of the day. That's all we want to do is catch more fish. So with my style of using snare rods, and I use a lot of them, wind doesn't help me most of the time because it's pretty much a dead stick bite. So I don't want them jigging. I mean, sometimes you can't control that by the wind, but I prefer calm days too. And 32 degrees.
I'll even take 30 if there's no wind. Awesome. So, I mean, overall, what I'm gathering from this is, be creative. Don't throw down what everybody else is throwing down. Try your bigger baits, try your smaller baits, try your minnows. But again, it's the time that really comes into this factor of, trying new spots. And like we're saying with hunting fish, don't always be the middle of the pack. Don't always just follow people, look for the trends and how the fish are acting. And, if that's a map or if that's another resource, that's what we're going to. So,
yeah, especially like Gogebic, if you get a bunch of guys in one spot, it doesn't pay to get in on them, because I think what happens is that they're driving the fish away from them. So getting that few hundred yards away from them, you might land on them because they pushed them out of there. There's just too much going on. I mean, I think that if you really understand Gogebic, you want to really be basically spread out pretty good, and then you're not on top of each other. So you're not competing for those 10, 12 bites a day with someone 50 yards from you,
Right.
Well, and actually, that's another great point for people who may want to still learn something new, try out something that they've never done, hit a lake that they've never been to. That is why guides exist. That is why there's people like you.
I had some friends fishing up a red the other day, and they got on the outside of a pack of guys, and they just crushed it. The guys moved the groups moved the fish out just that much more, So pressure does change the habits of these fish for sure.
Well, and especially on years like this year where we don't have a whole lot of snowpack, so not only do you have to deal with shadows impacting your fishing, especially in those shallow areas, but you have to deal with noise. And so even just constant walking around, you can move fish around just by walking.
Well, we actually had a buddy walk up to our shack today. I was fishing with another friend of mine, and he moved the bucket across and we have snow. We have 8-9 inches of snow on the ice. He moved a bucket across the ice, and it made that. The fish just blew out from underneath us. I mean, we had 20 fish just take off. I mean, they were gone. They wanted nothing to do with it. Just a weird noise that they weren't. These lakes don't get any pressure, so we might be the only people on there for the whole year. I mean, one time. So I mean, it's just they get. They're not used to any noise. No snowmobiles, no noise at all. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good point. In the summer, it's not very noisy. You can kind of sneak your boat around a little bit, but in winter, it is a lot different. If you're foot traffic or any other kind of traffic that is something to consider.
Well, I think though, once we walk around or we drive our sleds and we use all our tools to locate these fish, I think it has to actually quiet down for a few minutes, let the fish come back in. I mean, don't try a spot for 5 minutes and say, oh, they ain't here, we're out of here. I mean, you have to give it a little bit more of a chance than that, because you have to remember, we made all this noise, drilling holes, doing what we're doing, setting up is a lot of noise. And these fish sometimes just aren't used to any noise. So I actually noticed the other day I was drilling out a lake, and these crappies were coming up to where we were drilling holes right to the electronics. And it was weird because you figured it'd push them away. It was actually drawing them in. They were curious.
Oh, okay.
So that's awesome.
That is cool.
I guess that's one of the things that people say about using baits that they haven't always seen, is that, sometimes fish are super curious. Sometimes they're skittish, but, sometimes you have to know when to capitalize on that. And
well, I believe that they're more curious than they're skittish, right? Because we catch them. If they were that skittish, we would never catch a fish. So, I mean, I think they're curious like a cat sometimes, so they have to come in and check it out. And then that's our job to get them to eat. But a lot of times I think these fish are, like I said, a little more curious than we actually think they are.
Well, and especially those trophy fish, because you're not fishing most likely a prey item anymore. You're fishing a predator. So they're out there looking for stuff to eat. Unlike, those little baby bluegills, they're just grabbing whatever they can before they get eaten. So they're more, that's all. It's there. I'm going to eat it. I'm gone. But those bigger fish, they have time to investigate it. They can look at it. They can swim away and come back,
Yeah, it's interesting. And I guess you learn every time you go out. That's what makes us better anglers. Every time we go out, we learn something a little different or figure something out a little different. Makes you a little better than your buddy, or try to anyway, so you can give it to them once in a while when you're doing a little better than them.
And sometimes you're just lucky.
That's not
she
true.
caught a lot of fish the last time she was up there. She schooled it.
Right.
Oh my gosh. So for people who are looking to get out, maybe with a guide, maybe on Gogebic, maybe for some perch, how do they get a hold of you?
We have a Facebook page, Fish with Guy, or our phone number's 1906-285-3179. So Jen takes all those calls. I'm busy fishing. So if someone private messages me, they're probably talking to me. If they're talking to Fish with Guy, a lot of times they're talking to Jen. So I'm busy, and I get home and I relax a little bit.
Yeah.
Get ready for the day. So.
But as far as a guide service, you get everybody out there. You have really warm shacks. You have really great situations. So whether you are a seasoned angler and want to try something totally different, or whether you are kind of brand new to all of it, I would definitely recommend getting out with John.
Yeah.
And definitely trying your hand for some of those perch, because that's a pretty unique situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think you learn a little different technique up here. I mean, it's just something a little bit different that we do. I mean, and it works. It's a fun way to fish, for sure.
Awesome. So we will definitely have people get a hold of you. We'll try to even post your Facebook into our comment link so people could just kind of click on it and make that super easy. But otherwise, thank you for being with us today.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to fishing with you guys again. So let me know if you have some free time. We'll lick some lips.
Awesome. Have a good rest of your night.
All right. Have a good night, John.
Thank you.
Yep.
Talk about somebody with a lot of fish knowledge. So if you are looking for a guide, I definitely would recommend, getting out there and just learning to see what they offer, because like John was saying, a totally different fishing situation than I guess I typically do myself around here.
Yeah, we and talk about a great group that he has working with him. Great equipment. He has a couple of cabins available to rent from him. So I mean, everything you could want besides your clothes and your
bring
food.
yourself. Yeah.
But go catch some giant perch up there.
Yeah, that's for sure. As far as next week, what do we have lined up?
Jason Mitchell?
I believe so. And then, with the rest of the month coming up, we are also looking for you guys to let us know what kind of tournaments are going on, what kind of events are going on. We would love to share that out. Maybe we'll surprise visit one or two of them, see what we can do. But to get that to the community around you and help get the word out, because I know a lot of the other fishing events are not happening this year. So make sure.
Speaking of tournaments.
What
starts tomorrow?
I don't know.
What starts tomorrow? The Lady Angler one, right? The Queen of the Ice?
Yeah, but I can't remember who hosted or anything. But it's a women's only tournament. It's crappies and walleyes. Check out Fish Donkey.
Yeah.
Sorry, if you would have prepared me for that, I would have had some information. Go and check it out there.
We'll have some stuff.
But like Josh is right, there is always virtual tournaments. So make sure that you are participating in that as well. Some fabulous prizes in many of them. So I don't know exactly what's going on right now, but I've heard that there's some really great stuff out there. So get out your bump board. Make sure it is the kind that has the nose to bump up to.
Yep. And the visible numbers. But yeah, check out Fish Donkey. They have lots of tournaments that don't require any entry. A lot of them, some of them are bragging rights. Some of them have some great prizes, like the Ice Queen one that has some great prizes.
And overall, a user-friendly app. So if you're worried about taking the pictures and all of that, it's definitely something that I've made it through successfully a few times. So if I can do it, you can do it. And I guess with that, a lot of people saying Happy New Year's in the comments. And so to you guys as well, thank you for
Happy New
spending
Year's.
your New Year's with us.
Yeah.
We got a few more minutes until New Year's, but cannot wait to see what we have coming up for ice season. So.
Absolutely. We'll see you in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Have a good night, guys.